Hello and welcome to the Mastercam 2022 rollouts. This section is going to be the multi-axis enhancements. And my name is Patrick Philippek and I'm an application engineer for Prototech Engineering. So multi-axis has seen some big changes here coming up in 2022. The addition of a brand new toolpath and some great enhancements to some toolpaths that we've already had. In SWRF, you're going to see a drop and retract option added. So in the cut pattern page, you will see a new drop tool to floor. And as you can see on the pictures there, you can define a floor surface, and the tool will go down to there. So you can kind of push your tool path down a little farther, down to a floor surface to get some clearance on the bottom if you wanted to, and to cut to that floor surface. A new method in SWRF also allows you to output spiral instead of single slices. So on that round part, if you wanted to do a SWRF around there, you'd have to do a slice. So cut around, retract out, plunge down to the next step to cut around. Now we can spiral that as an option in our cut pattern page also. So SWRF's seen some nice changes here. Them should come in handy for what we had previous. Feed control zones. Now they allow you to pick geometry and increase the feed rate outside of that zone, hugely decreasing cycle time. So in the unified tool path, as we're seeing on the screen here, under the utility, there will be a feed control zone. And the geometry selection there, you go and select what you want it to be as an inside feed rate. And then you have an outside feed rate is anything outside of there. So on the picture there on the screen, you would pick your part as your inside feed rate, and we just put that at 100% for this instance. And then anything outside of that, so all them windows that are on the part, we can put a feed rate of 500%. So it'll speed up the feed rate in between where it's not cutting anything that's actually going to show on the part, or maybe the windows are already removed out of there. So this is a very nice addition also that we'll take a look at. So by far the biggest change in multi-axis is going to be the addition of a new toolpath. Unified is added into the toolpath. Unified is a toolpath where you can start, let's say, with the morph, and if you don't like the pattern, you can switch it to a parallel or a curve. So what it is it's a bunch of toolpaths all built in one. And this is going to allow you to look at the cut pattern. If you don't like it, you don't have to start a new tool path over. You can just repick different options inside that tool path. So it's a really, really good tool path to start to use. And it's going to really simplify the workflow in Mastercam. You're going to be able to find that tool path up in the multi-axis tool paths, and it's going to be right in the front row there, third one in, called Unified. So the new unified multi-axis toolpath is going to look like this. So this is the only page that really looks any different. If you're used to multi-axis toolpaths, everything in here is going to look the same, and it's all the same verbiage. It's just this page here changes a little bit. As you can see up in the top center of that, you have a bunch of options now that we'll go over, and we'll kind of see how they work. So what is the new unified toolpath? It's one toolpath that will do the work of multiple other toolpaths. What did it replace? It replaced nothing. Everything you were using before is still available as far as morph, SWRF, flowline. All of them are still going to be available. And what makes unified so great? The ability to try multiple strategies, parallel, morph, curve, all in one toolpath instead of multiple toolpaths. And simplified the editing between different strategies. The bottom one there is the big one. You can get a cut pattern, see how it looks. If you don't like it, you just make a switch in the parameter page, cut parameters page, and it's re-updates that, so you can take a look at that strategy. So this is really a great toolpath. Let's go ahead and take a look at this unified toolpath in Mastercam 2022. So on the screen here I have a part. We're going to do a simplified cut here to explain how this works, and then we will get to this interior pocket on the back side also. So we're going to start here on a pretty simplified little surface here, and I'm going to go to multi-axis unified. Now in here, a lot of these pages that haven't changed. So whatever you're used to with these pages are essentially going to be the same, with the exception of the cut pattern page. The cut pattern page is going to have a new section up on top, and this is what we'll be working with as we kind of look at the examples here that I have processed for you. So we have some new options here as far as automatic, curve, surface, plane, and we can remove all of them. And right now we have no styles. To pick your machining geometries, it's right here with this white arrow. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick this surface here, and I'm going to end selection. And without doing anything, I'm not going to do any settings in here. I'm just going to let it kind of calculate once we get out of this. But as far as I was saying with these other pages, nothing changes here, nothing changes in your collision control page, nothing changes in your linking. So it's all the same. So I'm just going to go ahead and green check and see what we get. And right off the bat, without really doing anything, I'm essentially getting a parallel cut. So this is just like a surface parallel tool path across here that it generated because I didn't give it really any control points here. So I don't really like that pattern. It might be good enough for you for whatever you're doing, but I don't really like it. I would rather have this blend along here a little better. So I can just simply go right back into the parameters of this cut. And I'm going to go back to our cut pattern page. So in the cut pattern page, I can go to automatic. Now, as soon as I go to automatic, you're going to see some stuff populate up here as far as a name is automatic and a style. So this is a machining boundary parallel. So if I go ahead and hit the drop down here, I'm going to have all my other options that I can pick from for this cut. So I have a morph in there. I have a surface boundary parallel, surface boundary morph, and then I have some center parallel and center morph, which is a spiral toolpath essentially. So if I leave this one on machining boundary parallel and go ahead and just green check, you'll see that my pattern's going to update. And now I can look at my pattern and go, well, it's better, looks a little better, but it's still really not what I want. So I'd have the ability to go back through these once again, and I could maybe look at a morph, just to see what's a machining boundary morph going to look like. Calculate that out. Now that's a lot finer cut, morphing out from this point here. So that's once again probably something that maybe I would like and maybe I wouldn't. So maybe I'm looking for more of a flow along these edges all the way, kind of like a blend toolpath. So the other options we have in here is we can change our options here. So maybe I don't like this one. So what I can do is I can go ahead and hit the red X, and that'll get rid of any style that I have in here. Now maybe I can go to a curve. So if I go to a curve and I have guides here, I can go to this white arrow and I can pick my guide curves. So if I come along here, now I'll be able to go ahead and pick these edges off here. And I'm going to guide from there to here. Now if I go ahead and green check and regenerate this, now I have a nice tool path that I would probably want here. I'm still not getting off the edge, so always keep in mind we have the extension options here. So if I come into here, there's going to be some additional stuff in linking. There's going to be some advanced buttons here. And in cut pattern we have extend trim here. So anytime we open any of these up, it usually opens a parameter page up here. And now I can say my tangential extensions, I could go 100% on the start and 100% of my tool diameter on the exit. And I can go ahead and green check. It's going to regenerate, and now I got nice extensions on that. So as you can see, I started out with really doing nothing, didn't like the pattern. I went to a morph, didn't like the pattern. I tried a parallel, didn't like the pattern. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to go and follow it along to curves. So I picked the curve option. And that's kind of what it can do for you as far as testing it out in the same tool path without creating another tool path before you continue on. So it's pretty cool that way. Let's go ahead and look at the bottom here. So I'm going to switch my plane to bottom. And we'll go ahead and go there. So one thing I want to look at here is I want to start putting some pattern on this cream colored surfaces on the bottom. And I'm going to once again use Unified here, so I'm just going to go to my Unified Toolpath. Once again, I'm just going to use the same tool here. In my cut pattern page, I have nothing selected here once again. I'm just going to see what I get because really I don't know. So I forgot to select my geometries here, so I can just hit no, and I can go and pick them because obviously you need some machining geometries. I'm going to go ahead and end selection. I'm going to go ahead and let that generate. And now here's that parallel style cut again. So if this is something you wanted, pretty much you don't have to do anything in this toolpath to get this pattern out of here. So it's an intelligent toolpath to kind of give you, give you patterns right off the bat that's actually gonna probably might work for you. So I'm not really liking that pattern too much. So I'm gonna go and give this a little bit more control. So now once again, we could come in here and we could go to an automatic row. And so now, I can take a look at this. Maybe if I leave this first option on, machining boundary parallel, maybe I want to look at that here. And now we can start to give it some of our collision controls also. So maybe we turn on collision control, check the shank and the holder, tilt tool automatic, and I'm going to pick avoidance. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the whole part here. And I'm going to go ahead and green check and see what we get. And now I'm getting a, more of a different cut pattern in here that maybe I could look at and say, well, that ain't too bad coming in there. Let's go ahead and take a look at it in backplot. My tool is going to come in there and tilt so it's not colliding. And now this is just going to work its pattern around. And more of a different little cut pattern there for me. So it all depends on what finish I'm looking at, how much polishing or polishers need to do. Maybe I can change the cut pattern around in here to look a little better for me in certain situations. And there's my cut pattern at that one. Well, maybe I'm not happy with that, and once again, it's just simple. It's just a simple switch to go back in here and say I'm going to go to the cut pattern page and I'm going to go try a different cut. Maybe I go to instead of a parallel, I go to a morph. Now if I go ahead and green check and let this regenerate, now I'm going to get a little bit different pattern cut, as you can see. Now it's working more out to the center, and this one morphed with the spiral kind of out as far as it could go. And there's your little triangles there that you're used to with the morph. So it's a little different cut, a little different processing to give me a little different look, kind of on the fly here. You could also drive from like a plane here. So once again, if I want to get rid of that, I could come here and I could say add a plane roll. And it's my WCSZ, my WCSXY, a construction plane. And then my tool would drive from that. So if I just go WCSZ, we could take a look and see what we're going to get here. And there's a little bit different pattern once again. That's moving about this way now. So, that's probably not what I would want. Maybe it would be. Once again, doesn't really matter. I can flip through all these options to get different looks. Let's go back in here and take a look at some additional options in here. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one. And I'm going to go ahead and go to our automatic. And we're going to go to a center parallel. So what this does is both these centers, parallel center morph, is going to look at the center point of your selected geometry, and it's going to spiral out from there. So if I go center parallel, now I'm going to get a little bit different cut pattern again. And as you can see, it's spiraling out. Here's our transition move. Works all the way out and then keeps on spiraling out along these edges here. Now one thing I do have here is these edges that I'm coming up on. So another option that we do have, which is kind of cool, once we get back in here, is we can come in here and we can go to containment. And I can create an additional cut from containment there. And I already have that one in, so let's go ahead and see if we're seeing it. So my first cut here should be along the outside edge of that, because when we're doing a spiral cut like that, wherever that ends, you have a scallop along that edge. So what that does is, see how I can get a toolpath to go all the way along this edge first, and then it starts to spiral out from there. So here goes my parallel spiral motion working its way out. So now I'm going to have a nice clean edge along there that typically you had to run a curved toolpath along, or your deburrers took care of that. So that's kind of a nice little feature here to be aware of. Now you'll notice that that cut, that cut first, we can control that also. And you also have an additional offset. So a positive number is going to go outside of your region farther. A negative would bring that cut to the inside on that initial cut there that went around the edge. So keep that in mind too when you're doing that. Down in the roughing op, if you wanted to reverse the order, so you wanted to cut the inside of this first and then do the outside cut last, then you would come on down here into roughing, you'd reverse the order of the passes. And then when I regenerate this, now what it's going to do is cut all the interior features, and then the last cut will be that outside, pretty much a contour cut along there to clean up all of them edges and to give you a clean edge, as we'll see here. And here comes my cut around the edge. So as you can see, it's quite the toolpath. It's user-friendly by far in this cut pattern page. And then the surface sets here, if I get rid of this and we come into surface sets, I have parallel guide, flow line U, and flow line V. And once again, these are just going to give you some different patterns depending on your cut. I haven't tested this with this cut yet, but if we do like a flow line U, not quite sure what it'll look like. So let's go ahead and take a look and see if it'll even calculate here. It looks like it's going to try. So we'll see what we end up with, and there's what we got. So these different surfaces have different U and V's. You can see this U is going this way and this U is going this way. So that's why I get that cut in that direction. So definitely try this toolpath out. This thing's cool as it gets because it has so much usability functions in it. Instead of scrapping what I did, I can just go and change my options in here as I go and get different cut patterns, making my multi-axis life a lot easier. And then, like I said, if you want to utilize that extra cut around there, that's going to be an option also for you to go and turn that cut on to go around the periphery of your cut, eliminating all them little scallops that are potentially there. So definitely check it out and see if you guys can utilize it on your multi-axis cuts. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at the Deburr toolpath and the Deburr Enhancements that they made in 2022. The multi-axis Deburr Enhancements are really pretty cool. So Deburr toolpath is a great multi-axis toolpath, very easy toolpath to use. The one limitation that you did have previous to this was how it is processing, so what it is actually doing. So in 2022, they allow us now to do multi-cuts. Instead of one cut along the edge, now we can take multiple cuts to really get an actual chamfer or an actual radius on the part. And kind of what I'm talking about here was this situation here. When we went and deburred something, that's what we got. So if we wanted an actual chamfer, we got a slight radius on there. Sure, it was breaking the edge, it was doing what we probably wanted it to do. We just weren't getting the results that we actually were probably striving for. So here's an example of a flat cut with one cut. So uncut material in the middle there, we can put a true chamfer on the part, or we can put a true radius on the part just by telling it how many number of cuts along the edge we want. So now we can pretty much put multi-passes on there to get really what we want. We can also limit the tilt motion too. So In the tool axis control now, you have a tilt range that you want that tool to go. This one's 0 to 180. Maybe you had a situation where you just wanted to limit it down a little bit farther. You could always do that here with the limited tilt ranges that they added. Let's go ahead and take a look at this multi-axis Deburr Toolpath Enhancements in Mastercam 2022. So here I have a part here fixtured up that I'm going to want to deburr. This has a lot of deburring on it. And we're just going to go ahead and segregate this just out to one pocket. We'll do this back pocket back here. So I'm going to go up to my multi-axis toolpath and go to the deburr option. And I already have a ball and mill loaded up, and I can simply go to my cut pattern here. So my machining geometries, I'm just going to go pick the whole part here. And a triple click on there will select that whole model. I'm going to use user defined. In my user defined edges, I'm going to go ahead and pick some edges here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab some loops, solid loops, since I have them here. I'm going to go grab that loop, and I'm going to go grab this loop. So we're just going to do this to these two. We'd be able to go and grab all of this if we wanted to. Avoidance geometries, I'm going to go ahead and pick this fixture. So once again, a triple click on there will select that. And I'm going to give it, and we're in a metric file here, so I'm just going to give it 2 millimeters of clearance. And then our edge shape, a constant width. How much edge break do we want? This will be at 0.5 millimeter in this case. And I'm going to start with one cut. So here's the new section here. Number of cuts along edges. Do I want a rounded face, as you can see the picture, or do I want a flat as a chamfer? So I'm just going to do one cut here. In my tool axis control, I'm going to do 5 axis simultaneous fixed to the main axis here. So let's go ahead and green check and see what we get out of this. And I have a tool path there. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we get. That tool path is going to come down, and it's going to do exactly what I would expect that to do, tilting tool out and cutting around this edge, giving me my 0.5 millimeter of edge break, and it'll go also inside here and do the same thing. Tilt to avoid gouge, and it's going to work that out. Now once again, right there I got one cut. So that edge that's on is only going to be that kind of scalloped edge that we're seeing right there, not a true chamfer. So all I need to do now is come back into this tool path, and I can go back to my cut pattern page, and now I can say give me 5 cuts along there. So it's going to take 5 cuts along there, and I'm going to go ahead and green check. Now this is going to regenerate this tool path, and now what this is going to do is it's going to give me 5 passes along there. So if I look in there now, I can see my 5 passes. So let's go ahead and backplot this. And one thing about this is I'm sure they're going to make an enhancement on this. This has been brought up. It does one side and goes to the next, and there's no way to get around that right now. I would imagine coming down the road in the next version they will address this to optimize the cuts. So that is one downfall to this right now, is it's got to skip around a little bit to do each individual cuts. But there I have my 5 passes on there. I could also come in here and do a radius on here, which is kind of cool. So I could round that. If I give that 5 passes, now I will get that to lay a radius on that edge and going around there. So we'll let this calculate, and there is going to be my radius edge. So now if we watch this one back plot, I'll be using a lot more of that tool, obviously. So that's a little bit on the multi-axis deburr and the enhancements there. I just think they're very important to note that you can do that now. And let's definitely check it out. I don't have my stock set up too well, so if we did, we could go and verify that and see a nice radius on there. But just keep in mind how you can control that. A new little page in here as far as rounded, flat, number of cuts along the edge. And then your edge shape is going to be right there and how much you want on there. So keep that in mind, try it out, and definitely give her a shot. Let's go ahead and take a look at the feed control zones on a file I have in Mastercam 2022. This is kind of a big shielded part here. And these windows, you know, we don't care about the finish on these windows. So we did a cut all the way across here on a surface. Now, as you're going past these with the same feed rate, you're really wasting a lot of time in these windows. So what they did is they enhanced this with a feed control zone. So let's go ahead and take a look at this toolpath here, this unified toolpath and backplot. Now once I start to run this toolpath, I'm going to see that in my details here, my feed rate especially is what I want to watch here. So as we're going, I'm just going to speed this up here a little bit. Once we get to the end here, we're picking up a feed rate of 500. We're going through the center here at 500 where we're really not establishing anything, and we're cutting across our surface and we're still going 500 inches a minute. So we're really wasting a lot of time there. So in our parameters of our tool path here, we can come down towards the bottom, and in utility there's a feed control zone. Now what you do is you pick your geometry that you want to tell it that that's going to be the inside feed rate. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick my whole part here, and I'm going to end selection. And I'm going to say inside that geometry I want to go 100% of the feed rate that I have set. But outside of that, so for instance these windows here that we're seeing, let's go ahead and go 500% of the feed rate. So once you hit them zones, go ahead and go that much faster. Now we are offsetting this by 5 millimeters. What that does is it senses where that edge is, and it extends the feed rate at 100% out by 5 millimeter or whatever value you would put in there if you are an inch. So with these settings set here, let's go ahead and regenerate this. And now let's go ahead and backplot this again. And it looks like it didn't regenerate here for me, so let me regenerate that. It's not done yet. And we got our toolpath up. So let's go ahead and backplot this. And once again, we're going to be seeing our same feed rate here, 500, when we're cutting on the part. 500, 500. And now we should be seeing some difference in this now. So once we come into here, and there. So look at my feed rate here in this bar right here. I'm at 2,500 for a feed rate, and I'm over that window. So as I start to control this here and get closer to my cut edge, oh, there I am at 500 again for my feed rate, or 100% of what I had set. And that's taking up account for that 5 millimeter zone here. Comes across at 500, gets past the 5 millimeters, and now I'm going 2,500 again. So as you could tell, this is really going to speed up your time that you're, doing a cut that's actually meaning something, or maybe you could speed it up through these zones that doesn't really matter, and pick up the cycle time on that. And also this cut's going to be a nice fluid motion. You wouldn't have to cut it this way. We could come along these, but then you have a bunch of interrupted transition moves along there. So sometimes this is better, and now it's really better because we can speed up on the zones that we don't want. So it's a great enhancement. Definitely look for that. And once again, if you missed it, it is in the in your parameters under utility and feed control zone. So make sure you check that out. It's a nice enhancement also there. And one last thing I'd just like to kind of discuss is some simulation enhancements that Mastercam has made. So when we're in our Mastercam simulation down below, we have some enhancements here as far as measuring. So now you can go and measure a distance, a curve, and you can do some smart measuring up there also. So as you can see in the picture, you can kind of determine, okay, on this move, I'm this far from my fixture, my stock. So the simulator measurement tools are added there for you to use. You can check them out, and they're kind of live on the screen as you are using them. Another thing that's available is simulation axis controllers. So these are like little knobs on the machine. So you can go ahead and take your mouse and you can spin these clockwise, counterclockwise. You can pick your axis, so it's kind of looks like it's the dials on your machine while you're looking in it. And these will give you all the the locations of the axes and any information. You can kind of hand jog these around. So these can be kind of useful. If you're looking for a potential collision or wondering how much room is between something, maybe you can utilize these simulation axis controllers to kind of hand wheel it like you're at the machine. So definitely take a look at them.